Thank you and welcome back to this final segment of our show, Elderly Abuse. And we're talking to Professor RBurton from Tennessee State University. Professor Burton, before we had our second break, we were talking about some of the areas of prevention in terms of elderly abuse, and we were trying to make a distinction between urban abuse as it occurs in the rural segments of our society and the urban segments of our society. And I'd like to continue that line of discussion in addition to saying something about what the church might be able to do in terms of dealing with this as a problem.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the church plays a very important role in the lives of most older people. This is a place, an institution where they're still allowed to openly participate, they're still accepted, and the church is a very important part of their lives. The positive things that happen with them many times come through the church, and if there are problems, they will usually ventilate them with various members of the church. There are many churches that have various social type programs within the church, which provides an outlet and provides a service for its elderly members. So the church is a very integral force in assisting in addressing this problem. Many times when we talked about financial exploitation, when elderly persons would not report this to a person within a social agency, they could possibly report it to some friend that they have within the church. This is a form of getting it out to say that this must be addressed. So the church plays a very significant role in the lives of it. It also would be a part of this prevention aspect, because if they have representatives that work within those social agencies within the church that could help address this, to help identify this, then people feel very comfortable in coming and sitting down and relating to say, well, I am having a problem and I feel I could come here and discuss it. So here again, the church is a very positive and viable vehicle in helping to address. And this comes also into play, brings into play the coordinated effort that is needed between the private sector, including the church, your public agencies, your universities, and what have you, in order to adequately address this particular problem, because this is a very sensitive issue. When you're talking about addressing an issue that's dealing with a loved one and a family member, and even though confidentiality is maintained, there's still a reluctance to do this because for fear of purpose, various standings within the community, and we wouldn't want this known and this kind of thing. So here again, the church here helps to serve as a buffer to address these kinds of areas and to help with the transition when this problem occurs.
Now, outside of the church, do you see any other methods whereby we might be able to reach into that family situation and prevent elderly abuse?
Yes, the church is only one institution, but you have let's say your senior citizen centers, your community centers, those agencies and institutions within your community where people go, where people feel a part. Here again, all of this is what when I'm talking about the coordination of those kinds of things come into play. The church, the community center, the senior citizen center, our universities. All of our universities are located within a community, and there are various programs within the university that can also be of assistance in addressing these particular issues.
See now, Professor Burton, you've spent considerable years of your life dealing with this as an issue. Why do you consider this to be very, very important?
Well, the reason why that I feel that this is important, I think that that respect for the elderly within our society must be maintained as one grows older. Now, I know that we've lived in a young adult society, and people were not living as long. But I think that it's very important that this be restored in this country, respect for the elderly, this kind of thing. Now, I know with the nuclear family, we don't all live together anymore, but I think a degree of respect. And another thing, they have so much to offer and contribute to society, and I think that we are missing out on a tremendous resource, but you can't do it if they are plagued with various problems that cannot be addressed. So here again, I think we have to do it for the ones who are older today, but we have to do it for ourselves and for those of us who will be in that category in years to come.
We often hear the phrase baby boom. meaning those young persons who were born prior to the second or directly after the Second World War. What about this whole idea of senior boom? Could you perhaps explain that and tell us how that might fit in with helping to mitigate against elderly abuse?
Well, I think one of the things when you look at the whole idea of your senior boomers, all you have to do is look at the numbers. All right. Now, we know that things happen in this country because of numbers. They have more clout, they have more voice. When we look at every age category, let's say from 60 on, their numbers are increasing. You have various organizations like the American Association of Retired Persons that has an active membership of some 30 million people. You have the National Caucus in the Center on the Black Aged, okay, that represents, you have your Asian and Indian Elderly Association. So here again, these various organizations that are very strong now, that are very viable, that have input in law, in federal laws and state laws that are made, that address the elderly, that's because of the numbers, that's because of the senior boomers, that's because this is going to be the group that we're going to have to relate to in the future. They're going to have they have the votes, the voice, the clout, you know, industry is relating to them. All this thing now about senior power, you know, they are the best, you know, employees that we can get. All of these things is because of that senior power that we're going to be seeing more and more of in days to come.
And so you think that this growing power will somehow mitigate against, at least make us more aware of some of the problems that we're facing with elderly abuse?
Oh yes, we'll definitely will be made more aware, and that there will be more programs and services that will be designed to address this issue.
Very good. We've got about 2 minutes, Professor Burton, before we end this segment of this show. As a matter of fact, before we end the show. But is there any information that you think that you should pass on to our audience on how we might be able to identify elderly abuse, or those who might be suffering from elderly abuse that we might not know about, how we might be able to identify such persons?
Well, one of the things that that's very tragic about this whole situation, studies show that children are twice as likely who were abused when they were younger to abuse their older parents and grandparents. That's one indicator that we can look at. Another one, if there are various kinds of problems within the family that are not being addressed, whether it be alcohol, drugs, persons out of work, other financial kinds of things. If you see these kinds of things develop and the problems not being addressed, here again you can eventually say it's going to lead to some form of abuse. The whole idea of all the responsibility being on one caretaker without any relief, this kind of thing. Here again, all of this thing, people are getting stressed out. Many of these things happen because people have become stressed out, and that's in no way to try to justify what has happened. But these are the kinds of things, over-stressful situations, financial problems, problems with alcohol and drugs within the family. All of these things can be indicators that if this is done excessively, it will ultimately lead to some form of abuse, especially since 90% of the abusers live with the older person.
Very good. Let me thank you, Professor Burton, for giving us that very, very important information in reference to elderly abuse. I'm sure that our audience has an opportunity to not only identify with some of the information, but perhaps they can also identify some persons who might be caught up and subject to this form of elderly abuse. And the things that you've said is adequate indication as to why this is called a hidden crime. And again, I would like to thank you for giving us that information today. And again, let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comment. In addition, if you've got any comments that you'd like for us to discuss on this program, please drop us a line here at the station. Thank you and good night.